Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show we talk about all things gaming, and my name is Killjoy, and today I want to talk about the recently released Baldurs Gate 3 and give some early impressions on it. Now, I have put in, as of this time of recording, 13 hours, some in a single player playthrough and some with my friend Don Hayes, which we've been streaming. It's been a good laugh. And I just want to give some early impressions on it because I know that this game is going to be a long game. So I'm probably going to give some early impressions and then give some final impressions when I've finished the game. But let's talk about it. So, for those of you who don't know, this game, Baldurs Gate 3, is the third one in a series of CRPGs, which the first two were very much loved, along with things like Icewind Dale, back when Black Isle were making these games. Now, Larian Studios, the guys that made Baldurs Gate 3, happen to have made the Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 games that I really like, especially Original Sin 2. And I kind of played that game at a point in my life when I was in a bit of a, I mean, not the best of time, we shall say. And that game really blew my socks off in terms of storytelling, in terms of characters and music and everything else, the gameplay, just everything about it. I loved it. So when back when this was announced a few years ago and Larian were like, hey, we're making Baldur's Gate 3, I was a little bit concerned because, I didn't know. I'm kind of glad they've taken time away to do this, I guess. But I was like, oh, this is very much based on a lot of the same systems that Divinity Original Sin 2 has. I hope that it's just as fun, and I've got to be honest, I've been cautiously optimistic for a while now. Because I just didn't want to get myself hyped and then not enjoy this world. But I can truthfully say that I have been genuinely surprised and had a blast with Baldur's Gate 3 so far. There are some minor bugs with it, and I do have some other minor issues with it. But as a game so far, in these first 13 hours, I've really enjoyed that time with it. So let's talk about two things. Let's talk about the gameplay, but let's split this down. There is a lot of things in this game that are very much the same as Divinity Original Sin 2. They just happen to be coated in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Now, if you're somebody that's played D&D 5th edition, there's a lot of stuff in this game you're going to recognise makes sense. You're going to understand how combat and discussions and all that stuff works, which gives you a leg up straight away. But it is very, very obvious to me that yes, they have made this game and they've used a very similar system that was in Original Sin 2, which is not a bad thing. I'm kind of glad they've gone the same way. They've tried to change it enough and maybe improve on it in certain ways to fit more in line with the D&D rule set. Now, if you've not played D&D, basically the way it works, on your turn you have three things. You have movement, you have a bonus action, and you have an action. And that is how a character works in combat. So movement is usually, hey, I'm going to move X amount of meters. Maybe it's 10 meters is my maximum movement distance. I'm going to move 10 meters. I'm then going to attack. And for a bonus action, I'm going to drink a potion. Right? So that's kind of your average turn when you're in combat. And everything's done on turns. And that works very well here. And what makes it's the same for every character, but each character class, and we'll get onto all that stuff in a minute, can affect what you can do on a turn. So each class can do different things. Some classes get double attacks. Some classes have bonus actions for things that you would normally take an action. They all have unique abilities basically, and that makes it interesting. So when you boot the game up and you're picking everything, you're picking your race, you're picking your class, and your spells and the kind of things you are, that all changes up how the game plays on a turn-by-turn basis in combat, right? So that's really awesome. It very much feels like character sheets, which are technically in the game, of how a character works. Now, one thing that definitely is really interesting to me is how there are two things you can do in D&D. One is it's technically grapple, but in the game is known as shove. But there's a grapple roll that normally is done when you do this, and the other one is jump. Now these are two things that very rarely have I ever needed or used when I'm in D&D, because normally most DMs, not to their own faults, for most of the games that we've played, we don't think about putting holes and pits around for people to get knocked into, because if you can do it to the enemy can do it to you normally, because that's just how the games work. But because this game is AI driven, and I have yet to see an AI actually attempt to shove someone unless it's with an attack. I don't think they're going to walk up to you when you're next to a hole and push you down it. But shove is really powerful in this game. If there's a bridge that you can collapse, or something like, you know, like a place where you can push an enemy down, you can push them down there. As long as you get the correct roll on your turn and you're strong enough, you can just whack someone down a hole. It's kind of nuts, actually. And the other one is jump. And the reason why jump's weird is because of how verticality works. You can jump up, and I mean like jump from the ground to the top of a building. Which is bizarre. Like, I don't ever think of it like that. I guess, you know, magic is the reason why you can do it, or just because these beasts are in a fantastical world. But these two things seem really powerful in Baldur's Gate 3. Like, if you're like, oh, I need to get close to the enemy, you can jump and then get close enough to them. You can jump and attack and then move. It's really cool seeing these mechanics come to life in a video game, because they almost make it easier for me to understand and visualize that. Reading the spells that I'm used to using in an actual D&D game, reading what the weapons do and everything, and seeing that in action is really cool, because it's like, oh, that's how that works. This is a cool rendition of this. It's, for someone who's played D&D before, it's actually really cool seeing it all come to life in a virtual world. The gameplay outside of combat is your standard affair from Larian. You walk around a big map or a big overworld. You go in caves, you go in places, you have discussions with people, you then have abilities, so you might try to persuade someone, you might try to intimidate, you might, because you're a rogue, you might have that as an option as well. You have pluses and minuses because of your stats. Your characters are going to be good at certain things like strength, maybe they're not so good at being particularly charismatic. And you know, you can kind of build them out however you want. You get gear, all the things you'd expect from like a Larian RPG or this kind of CRPG. It's all kind of here, but they do a really good job of really fleshing out the world. Bear in mind, I'm 13 hours in, right, and I'm not even done with the first act. Now, I don't know how many acts there are in the game, probably 3 or 4 I would, if I had to guess. And the first act is great. You have the first initial thing where, if you haven't seen it, you get infected, you crash land, and now you're on this place, and you go around and you find other members of the people that got infected who you can have in your party, and they are all very interesting characters. Not what single one of them am I not interested in currently. We'll get to them in a minute. And you know, you go around and you come across different things. Like, you might come across some people defending a chapel, you might come across some goblins, you might come across a grove that's there. All these things all interlock. That's the crazy thing. There's so many stories within stories within stories, and I'm only 13 hours in, and this is what something Larian's very good at. They're also very good at giving you, the player, the opportunity to find a quest in multiple places. I found a particular quest in my single playthrough in the grove, whereas we found it in our multiplayer in the Goblin City. And it's really cool that you can find these different things in different places, and people can give you similar or the same information or different information about the same quest. Stuff like that, basically. But the writing. Let's talk about the characters, because the characters that the game shows off on the box art and the ones that you can have in your party, apart from your custom character, so far are interesting as all hell. You know, you have... I don't think it's really a spoiler at this point to say, you know, I'm talking about the box art characters, the ones you see for them. So you have Zell, who's like a Githyan Yankee, I can't remember how you pronounce it. Creature I've never come across before. Very much about combat, warrior code, like very a certain way, about killing things, getting shit done, like that. And she's very much a fish out of water when you try to explain things to her and have her learn about the world you're running around, because they're not really from this plane for the most part. But they do fight mind flayers, and they obviously play a big part in it. You then have Shadowheart, who's a cleric. Now, I won't go into what I've just found out, because I don't want to spoil anything too much, but she's very standoffish for some reason, and, you know, she's very well written in a way that I'm like, this is not the usual cleric. Normally when you think of a cleric, you think of someone who's very much about, like, helping people and God, and, like, certain gods of, like, in the D&D world, or the ones that you come across are mostly clerics of people of, like, that do good things, of food or of health, you know, stuff like that. You can get dark clerics, you can get evil clerics, but Shadowheart, interesting character. now that I know more about her, she follows a certain way. She is a certain way, and it's just like, okay, I didn't expect this, so that was cool. You then have Asterion, who is, I think, possibly one of the best voice actors I've ever heard in a game. I think he's really interesting. Very posh, British up class, if you like. Haven't delved too much into his story, but he has some fun dialogue. He's very just interesting because he's very upper class. So he's like very much like, well, I'll help you out, you know, kind of thing. Interesting character like him. And then the other two you have, the ones I've come across so far, Gale, who is a magician, or say magician, is a wizard, I believe, and he has like some magic thing going on, but also very well voice acted. In fact, all of them are very well voice acted. And then there's Will, who's a warlock, who might be not boring, but I feel like there's more to him that you will find out. But I haven't spent a lot of time with him, but he seems cool. He seems like a badass. And then there's also a druid that we come across who seems pretty cool as well. And I know there's other characters you get later on, but the writing genuinely in this game is funny. Because of the different classes and races, you get access to so many different dialogues. I've seen multiple conversations play out very differently depending on who's talking to those characters, what their kind of background is, you know, whether they're good, evil sort of stuff. And overall, just like genuinely just had a laugh, and the romance options and stuff that I've seen, kind of interesting, kind of funny as well. Just across the board, so far, the 13 hours I've played with this game, the enjoyment I'm having, the fact that it is giving me those memories of Divinity Original Sin 2, the fact that I understand how like D&D works, and it's just it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those things that's just enjoyable, and honestly I am loving it to bits so far. So we will see how that ends up panning out when we get through to the next couple of acts. There are a couple of minor things though. Firstly, I have encountered some minor bugs. They have already put out a hotfix for this game so far, but I did encounter some minor bugs. Things like text for where my pointer was staying on screen. I've had it where suddenly subtitles and people will start talking to me when I'm doing actions in combat. I think it's like suddenly it almost goes too loud. And I've also had some cutscenes not work properly. None of this is game breaking, which is good, but it is unfortunate and it does kind of sully the experience just a little. But these things I truly believe will just be fixed quite easily. There's only one thing I really have a problem with how the game is designed, and that is when your character enters a cutscene or a dialogue with somebody, they just look gormless. Like your character pretty much, apart from when certain things happen, just stares blankly at the person they're talking to. Now, I wouldn't mind it, but it really kind of pulls me out of the experience. Now, admittedly, my character looks like a lumberjack in one of my games and a pirate in another one, so they are kind of very silly looking. But because they have pretty much the same expression on the face, it's kind of like, ugh, come on, look a bit more invested in what's going on. And that's, you know, again, very minor thing, not nothing that is going to really deduct away from the game itself. But it is annoying to see your character just be a bit of a blank slate like that, rather than having much of a personality in, like, you know, just smiling or looking terrified, you know, just expressions basically. But all in all, so far, first impressions very, very good. I'm, you know, eager to jump back in and play more. I'm very curious to see where the story plays out. I want to see more of the dialogue options. I want to see more of how other classes work out. I mean, I'm going to be playing a 4-player game of it very soon with Jack, Toby, and Dave, so it's going to be pretty funny, I think, and a lot of chaos will probably ensue. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, so you can look forward to that. But thank you very much for watching this video, as always. If you like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content like this, then hit subscribe. Links for Facebook and Twitter will be down below in the description, as always. And until next video, I will see you then.